My friends, I've said it tonight and I'll say it again, we lived something intense. I don't know about you, but I'm still celebrating and thinking, we're a team with one of the most loyal and passionate fan bases out there. We demand more when it's time to demand it, and we celebrate hard when it's time to celebrate. That's the Steelers. We go all the way, staying true to who we are. So if you went to bed happy after last night's win, hit that like button and drop a comment saying, "Go Steelers, I slept great, pretty good, right? Let's go." What happened in Pittsburgh wasn't just another Sunday win, it was a statement. The Steelers didn't just beat the top-ranked offense in the NFL, they tore apart the narrative that their defense was done. This was domination, the kind that silences doubters and reignites belief in what black and gold football stands for. Against an Indianapolis Colts team averaging explosive numbers all season, Pittsburgh's defense dictated every inch of the game, and for the first time in weeks, you could feel that old-school steel curtain spirit pulse through Acrisure Stadium. The game plan was simple, but it was executed to perfection. Shut down Jonathan Taylor, the league's leading rusher, and force Daniel Jones into mistakes. That's exactly what they did. 14 carries, 45 yards. The same Jonathan Taylor who had been shredding defenses for months suddenly looked ordinary. Jones, meanwhile, was no longer Danny Dimes. He was scrambling, confused, and desperate. 3 interceptions, countless pressures, and one long, miserable night for a quarterback who couldn't find his rhythm because Pittsburgh wouldn't let him. And that defensive front? Relentless. Alex Highsmith, who many critics were calling washed, exploded with 2 sacks and a forced fumble. TJ Watt, another name some dared to question, delivered his trademark sack strip, reminding everyone why he's still one of the most feared men in football. Keanu Benton collapsed the pocket, Joey Porter Jr. blanketed receivers and even grabbed a pick, and Peyton Wilson looked like a man possessed, all over the field, tipping passes, grabbing an interception, and finishing with 13 tackles. It was organized chaos, the kind of defensive performance that defines a Steelers season. But the story runs deeper than the stat sheet. This wasn't just a defensive turnaround, it was a response to weeks of criticism, a declaration of pride. Cam Hayward, the unquestioned leader of that locker room, called his teammates out publicly after the previous losses. The message was clear, either respond or fold, and they responded with fury. The energy on the sideline was different from the opening drive, louder, sharper, unified. You could tell something had changed. Behind the scenes, multiple leaders had stepped up. Reports surfaced that Jalen Ramsey spoke to the entire team the night before the game, delivering words powerful enough to reset the tone. Whatever he said worked, because when the defense took the field on Sunday, they weren't just executing assignments, they were hunting. And it wasn't like they had all the pieces. The safety room was depleted, Deshaun Elliott still on IR, Kyle Duggar just 2 practices in after joining the team midweek. Yet Duggar looked composed, steady, even earned a game ball from Mike Tomlin. When you don't hear a safety's name often, that's a good thing, and Duggar was exactly where he needed to be. Ramsey, meanwhile, slid into the free safety role seamlessly, commanding space and helping coordinate coverages. This was a patchwork secondary playing like a seasoned unit, another testament to how this coaching staff adapted under pressure. The strategy was classic Tomlin Austin football at its best. Take away the run, win with the pass rush, and force turnovers. And for the first time in a while, everything clicked. 6 turnovers total, 5 of them on defense, and each one setting the tone for what this team can be when it stays disciplined. You could see it in the way Peyton Wilson described it afterward. Just execute. No overcomplicating it. No trying to play hero ball. Do your job, trust the man next to you, and the rest will come. It did. The turning point came mid-second quarter. TJ Watt's strip sack flipped the field, setting up a touchdown drive. Minutes later, Wilson's interception set up another. 3 consecutive Colts possessions ended in turnovers, the kind of sequence that breaks a top-tier offense's spirit. Each play fed the next. Each hit energized the crowd a little more. Suddenly, Pittsburgh wasn't playing from behind or hanging on. They were dictating every moment. They had found their rhythm, their confidence, their identity. And let's not forget what this means in the bigger picture. 2 weeks ago, people were wondering if this defense had lost its edge. The same front 7 that once terrorized offenses looked slow, disorganized, disconnected. But this game, this one changed the tone entirely. Against the league's best offense, the Steelers reminded everyone why their reputation still carries weight. They didn't just survive, they imposed their will. You could feel it in every snap, every collision, every celebration after another third down stop. Even the veterans knew this wasn't just another win. Cam Hayward said afterward that the key was stopping the run and forcing Indy to play one-dimensional football. That's what Pittsburgh football has always been about: discipline first, then dominance. Every tackle, every forced turnover came from attention to detail and trust in the system. And you could see the chemistry growing, from Wilson's sideline communication with Patrick Queen to the high fives between the defensive line after every stop. For a unit that had looked disconnected weeks prior, that togetherness was everything. And speaking of Queen, his post-game comments about Wilson said it all. "He had dog," Queen said, laughing, still hyped after the win. When he plays like that, it gets the whole team going. You could tell it wasn't just pride, it was belief. Belief that the young linebacker core, one of the fastest and most dynamic in the league, is evolving into something special. Wilson's explosiveness, Queen's veteran presence, and the leadership of Hayward in what? It's a mix that's finally finding balance. Now here's the thing, Steelers fans, this game wasn't just about the stats or the scoreboard. It was about heart, about watching a group of guys decide they weren't going to be pushed around anymore, about reclaiming the identity that's defined Pittsburgh football for generations. The Colts came in with confidence, expecting to roll through another defense. Instead, they walked into a storm, a black and gold storm that swallowed them whole. Because if this was the turning point, then we might be witnessing the start of something much bigger in Pittsburgh. What we saw against the Colts wasn't a one-off miracle, it was a blueprint, a defensive formula that, when executed with precision, can take this team deep into the postseason. The kind of football that reminds you why the Steelers are always dangerous when they smell momentum. Mike Tomlin said it best through his actions, not words. This was about accountability. He didn't overhaul the system. He didn't panic. He challenged his players to trust the process, to lean on the fundamentals, and to let their preparation speak louder than their critics. You could feel that on the sideline. Players weren't freelancing or second-guessing. They were trusting each call, flying to the football, playing fast and physical. For a team that had struggled with inconsistency all year, this was the night they rediscovered clarity. And maybe that's why the energy in Acrisure Stadium felt different. Every time Walter Highsmith collapsed the pocket, the crowd erupted like it was playoff football. Every time Peyton Wilson made a stop, you saw teammates pounding helmets, shouting encouragement, feeding off the fire that had been missing. Even when the Colts tried to mount a late comeback, it never felt like the game was in danger. That's the mark of a defense that finally believes in itself again. But let's not ignore the offense. Because while the defense stole the show, the offense did its job, mostly. Aaron Rodgers, cool and calculated as ever, understood that this wasn't about lighting up the scoreboard. It was about efficiency and protecting the football. Still, he wasn't satisfied. In the post-game presser, he said what every great leader says: that's not good enough. Even after putting up 27 points, he wanted more, wanted to turn turnovers into touchdowns, wanted cleaner execution, sharper timing. That's what separates the elite from the average. Never settling. And he's right. There were missed chances. The drop play-action pass by Jonnu Smith, the failed red zone sequence after the muffed punt, the misfire to Darnell Washington on the slant. Those moments could have turned a 27-20 win into a 34-10 statement. But even through those lapses, you could sense something else. Composure. No panic. No finger-pointing. No implosion. Just a quarterback in a unit that knew how to manage the game, how to ride their defense's momentum, and how to finish when it mattered. Jaylen Warren's 2 touchdowns, his first of the year, were a testament to that grind-it-out mentality. The run game wasn't pretty. The Colts bottled up the ground attack, holding Warren under 2 yards per carry. But when it mattered most, inside the 5, he delivered. That's classic Steelers football. It doesn't have to be flashy, it just has to be effective. Now, let's circle back to the bigger picture, because this win does more than boost the standings. It changes perception. The Steelers didn't just beat the Colts, they beat the narrative that they couldn't hang with elite teams. They took down the top offense in football, just weeks after pundits were questioning their defensive identity. That matters. In a loaded AFC, where every inch counts, this kind of win echoes through locker rooms around the league. Opponents notice when Pittsburgh starts playing with swagger again, and there's something poetic about how it happened. The same formula that's defined this franchise for decades, stop the run, pressure the quarterback, force turnovers, is alive again. The same kind of win that used to make teams dread a trip to Pittsburgh is back on tape for everyone to see. When this team sticks to that identity, they don't just compete, they control. Even the numbers tell the story. 6 turnovers, 3 consecutive takeaways leading directly to touchdowns. The Colts, who entered with one of the most efficient offenses in recent NFL history, reduced to desperation screens and checkdowns. That's not luck, that's discipline meeting talent. And if you look closely, you'll see that it wasn't just stars like Watt and Highsmith doing damage. It was the collective. Keanu Benton, after hearing critics question his starting role, responded with a sack and constant interior disruption. Joey Porter Jr. was tested early and answered with tight coverage and an interception that sealed the game. Kyle Duggar, 2 practices in, looked like he'd been in the system for months. Every level of the defense contributed, and that's exactly what Tomlin's vision has always been about, team-first football. Now, imagine what happens when this defense continues to gel. When Duggar fully grasps the system, when the front 7 keeps sinking their blitzes and gap responsibilities, when young playmakers like Wilson and Porter grow even more confident, add in a healthy rotation and a little offensive consistency, and suddenly the Steelers aren't just a tough team, they're a threat. The ripple effect of a win like this can't be overstated. Inside that locker room, belief turns into momentum, and momentum turns into results. It's contagious. Players start practicing harder, watching extra film, pushing each other. Coaches start calling games with more confidence. The crowd starts believing again. It's the kind of internal shift that transforms a season. And while Tomlin will undoubtedly remind everyone that we haven't done anything yet, even he must know what this means. You can see it in his post-game grin, that mix of pride and purpose, knowing his guys didn't just win, they grew. This team was tested, doubted, questioned, and they answered in the most Pittsburgh way possible, with grit, unity, and defense. But here's the real question, Steelers Nation, was this just a spark, or the beginning of something greater? Have the Steelers finally found the version of themselves that can take down anyone, anywhere, any week? Because if this wasn't just a spark, if this was the start of a surge, then every team on the Steelers' schedule just got a serious problem. What we saw on that field was a defense rediscovering its identity, an offense learning to complement it, and a locker room realizing what it means to play Steelers football again. It wasn't about perfection, it was about purpose. Every hit, every turnover, every celebration on that sideline carried the same message. We're not done yet. You could feel that conviction in the way the veterans carried themselves. Cam Hayward, battered but still the heartbeat of the defense, walking off the field with a quiet smirk that said this is what it's supposed to look like. TJ Watt, arms flexed toward the crowd after his